Hey, Silk.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
What is going on? Hello, everybody, and welcome to Investor Party. I am your host, the hostess with the mostest. Kind of. I guess that works. No, I'll change something else. The host? Nah, not so fun. Anyway, I'm Jacob, and I'm here to introduce you guys to one of my favorite little investors. He is the fastest mouth in the South, and he's pretty smart, too. Our former Marine, Mr. Brandon Diaz. Hello, sir. How are you?
Very good, Jacob. How are you?
I am great. Hold on, put on my serious butch voice. I'm doing great, man. How are you doing today? Right, sounds better, right?
Amazing.
Amazing. No, if you keep going, your testicles will literally drop through your chair into the floor. So just keep going lower and lower. Yeah, makes sense. Cool.
It's appropriate.
Well,
yeah.
Welcome. So you can tell we're not exactly the most PC group in the group, which is
That's
more
cool.
fun. So
that's cool.
So these are our. Hello, James. Welcome to your first investor party. Well, not your first, but your first one here.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be working right now, but I'm taking a break here, so don't tell my boss.
I won't say anything. And frankly, it's not live on Facebook at all right now, so he wouldn't know whatsoever. Yeah.
Never.
So Jessica, how are you doing? Yeah, that's you.
Good. I'm in the new place. So like this is the new hacienda that I'm kind of hanging out in right now. I'm changing door locks and scraping ceilings. I'm not
that's fun.
Somebody else is scraping ceilings, but
so you outsource the parts that aren't going to make you any money yourself. That's great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So guys, for those of you who don't know Brandon, let me give you a little bit of a little insight to who this gentleman is and why he's so impressive. So Brandon does not come from money. He was not raised in a wealthy family. He did not grow up on the best side of the tracks. In fact, he grew up with a mother who was very Latina. It made him actually appreciate everything he has grown to have. He then joined the Marines, correct, Brandon? You joined the Marines at what age?
18. I joined at 17, but I actually went in at 18, but yeah.
And you served until?
I went in from 2004 to 2008.
And through that time, he did several tours in Iraq. 3 tours, is that what it was?
Yeah, I was 0311 infantry in the United States Marine Corps, did 2 tours in Iraq, and then a tiny training deployment to Israel.
So he has done his time to serve our country. Thank you for your service again, Brandon.
Thank you.
When he was in the Marines, he was going to retire. He thought there would be a better way to do things, and so he did. He actually, just like you guys, picked up a little purple book that changed his life, got education, invested in his education, got a mentor, and has since gone on to create financial independence for himself and his family. He's actually a great marketer. He does this thing with red doors on his offers. I'll let him talk to you about that in a little bit. But he is based in Memphis, Tennessee, and he does deals all over the place. He is a wholesaler, a flipper. He also holds some properties, and he is a great educator. And one of the things that he did at one point in time was a really creative strategy that is going to dovetail on what we learned a little bit on Friday. So I want you guys to stay tuned so you can see how some of these pieces come together. But I'm going to turn the mic over now to Brandon. We're going to actually listen to you. Brandon, how are you doing today?
I'm amazing. Thank you.
Wonderful. So tell us about your start in real estate. What year was it? What did you do? Give us a little bit more background.
So I got out of the Marine Corps in 2008. And when I first got out of the Marine Corps, the transition from coming to the civilian world was very difficult for me, from going from high school just to the military and then getting out. I didn't really have any skill sets. Other than the only thing I could really apply for was really like law enforcement officer. And I really wanted to become a state trooper in my state, the state of Tennessee. The problem was they weren't even taking applications in at that particular time for because of the economy and the budget cuts from all the way from the federal government to the state levels to the city levels because of the 2008 debacle. So during that time period, I was going through just getting a criminal justice degree at a community college in the east portion of Tennessee, a city called Chattanooga, Tennessee, when I got introduced to real estate investing in 2010. And that was from just kind of reading the books from Robert Kiyosaki and then getting me into an actual seminar. And then I invested in quite a bit of money to actually, I saw a light at the end of the tunnel for once, where I didn't feel like the traditional route was actually working for me at that time. And in 2010, I started off in real estate investing, began off in wholesaling because I didn't have much capital at that time, just kind of working my way around it. And reinvesting all my profits back into my business. And then in about 2014, 2015, we actually started being a true profitable business. So it took about 4 years of just reinvesting back into the business over and over and over again. And we've done various amount of strategies, all the way from lease options, a lot of creative financing transactions, what we'll be talking about today, all the way from wholesaling. Right now we do mainly, our main business is more fix and flips. We have a lot, our portfolio does hold rental properties and creative financing terms on the exit side of things. But right now we're really focusing on doing a lot of fix and flips. Currently right now in the portfolio, we got 7 active fix and flips that we're doing currently. And I've got another 4 or 5 that we're purchasing currently. I literally just getting emails right now saying, hey, we're ready to close on these transactions. And that's what we're doing currently as well.
That's surprising, because you always show on your Facebook when you're very, very good at driving around the neighborhoods, showing people what to look for, telling people about what's going on in that neighborhood. Because you're really good at you hone in on 1 or 2 streets and you drill those down. Am I accurate?
No, 100%. I'm a big component of being a big fish in a small pond. The city of Memphis, we have a population of around 650,000, which is it's a smaller, larger city. I mean, we're not we're a larger city, meaning in the capacity that we have a major airport, we have IKEA's, Apple, all that type of stuff, and we have a larger population. But we're not Los Angeles or New York City or anything like that. But at the same time, being the city that we are, it's still, we're talking massive amount of territory. And instead of looking at yourself as trying to be the biggest in the entire city, what I'll do is I'll focus on specific neighborhoods and I've told James this as well, is absolutely hone in on a particular neighborhood and be the biggest in that neighborhood. And then what'll happen is that you'll know everything about the streets, you'll know everything about the price tags, you'll know everything about the neighbors, what's the driving force of people wanting to live there. You'll sell yourself in reasons why it's a great neighborhood. And then all of a sudden you'll pick up multiple properties. And to everybody else in my city, what they believe is they think that I'm just picking up deals after deals after deals after deals all across the city. But the reality of it is I have very specific, I've niched myself in specific neighborhoods all across the city, and then I'm picking them up there. And the outside appearance is that we're just absolutely dominating the entire city, but that's not the reality of it. We're only cornering little small segments of the neighborhoods, and we know everything, all the way from what rents are going for, square footage prices, all the way from what a 3-bedroom will go for, 2-bedroom, typically how much it cost in rehab per houses. Like if I'm working on a 20s or 30s house, 1920, 1930s house, I already know typically how much in this neighborhood those houses will cost in renovations. If I'm working on another neighborhood where the houses were built in the 70s, I kind of have an idea what kind of rehab cost it'll be on those neighborhoods. So when we're honing in on our marketing, I get a phone call, and then I already kind of got an idea of what's going on just off the general conversation of that person. And then I can hone in just kind of just preliminary numbers in my head, and then start striking deals quicker than anybody else. And that's what we're really niching ourselves in at this point in the market.
How long did it take you to get that skill? Because that's not something that happens overnight.
It was an evolution over time. I didn't really realize it until later. Like I always tell people, the longer that I've been in this business, I mean, I've been in it since 2010, and 10 years later, I still feel brand new to it. We're roughly doing around 25-ish to 30 transactions a year, something of that nature. And we've been doing that for a while now. We just kind of just changing up our strategy just a bit. But I always say, like, every 6 months, I look back at the last 6 months and realize how much I didn't know, and how much, like, all of a sudden there's a small epiphany, and that small epiphany is absolutely just something that just blows even my own mind. And I realize, man, what will I know in the next 6 months and the next 6 months? And just to kind of give you a little story, back in like 2010, 2011, I can't remember, but it wasn't my first deal, but it was one of my first deals. I picked up a little small mobile home in a small park that only had 3 mobile homes in that park. And at one point back in like the 60s or 70s, it used to be full of like 30 and 40 mobile homes in this one park in the city. And now it's only down to 3 mobile homes in that park, I should say. So the very first whole property I ever had was a small little mobile home, and I picked it up for $4,000. Well, when I picked it up, I found out that there was one of the other neighbors that wanted to sell that mobile home, and I already picked up one. So I picked this one up and ended up turning around and selling it, and making 10 grand off of it, kind of in like a wholesale retail sell type scenario where they paid cash for the mobile home. And I ended up making 10 grand off of it. And I remember, and it didn't become an epiphany to me, but I realized, like, I was like, man, I've controlled like nearly over 70% of this mobile home park already. Like, I was like having like that I'm the big man on this little block right here. And then what ended up happening years later, I ended up wholesaling a mobile home on one street, okay, a street called Beach Street, James, in Rossville, okay. And what happened was I ended up wholesaling this house on Beach Street. And I remember specifically seeing the house across the street. And I'm like, man, I would really like to pick up that house as well. And just by chance, I ended up getting a call and ended up buying that house across the street. And I ended up picking it up for myself. And I was like, man, I already know this street very well, because I already wholesaled this literally across the street. And then when I was rehabbing the house, the neighbor wanted to sell their house. And by negotiating with the neighbor, I ended up wholesaling that one and I remember specifically making 10 grand off of the wholesale assignment on that house. And that was off of one street where I was one house in front, I own this house, and one right next to me. And I realized that I knew the numbers better than anybody else in that neighborhood. And I was able to pick up those houses because no one else really understood that neighborhood the way that I knew it, because of how much experience I had just in that little section. And even with that experience there, it still didn't click with me that I need to do more of that. And then later on, we just started doing neighborhoods and fixing up these houses. And then I started realizing I'm doing all this research in these neighborhoods. I know the numbers. I know I'm studying every comp. I'm studying every active that's not even sold right now. I'm just seeing what they're, asking for their houses. I'm looking at the rents in the neighborhood, and then I'm watching those actives go sold as I'm retailing sell the house. Like, I'm understanding this neighborhood better than anybody else. And then I started thinking, why don't I just concentrate all of my marketing dollar efforts into this neighborhood and then try and pick up as many as possible? So then that's what I started doing. And then all of a sudden we started focusing on neighborhood after neighborhood after neighborhood. And then we were able to do more transactions because of that.
You actually have, you talk a lot about marketing when you're in your training and when you help your students that come through that you mentor. You started doing a branding idea with it, with some of your campaigns. Would you like to talk about that and how that helps?
And what regards? You're going to have to help me. Okay, I got you. Because, we do a lot of different type stuff as far as all the way from, hashtags with Deals with Diaz. So like if you wanted to look me up, a way to find me is just like type in Deals with Diaz, whether it comes to YouTube, and Deals is with a Z, by the way. So Deals with Diaz, all the way from red doors. The whole point is to consistently try to make ourselves like be remembered in some kind of way. Now we don't try to like plug it in everyone's face all the time as far as a spam type like direction. It's more of a natural, like we're just there to like show people that we exist and have something for people to remember. And in time, one person may see it today, but doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily do a deal with me tomorrow, but it could happen in subsequent days after that. So meaning months or maybe 6 months or a year, but I'm just planting the seed. And I'm not expecting the seed to just grow into a tree overnight, which a lot of people have that mistake or that idea that they have to do. It's more or less like, let's just plant a seed, and then we'll just be consistent about constantly just planting multiple seeds. And in time, some of those seeds won't grow, and some of them will grow, and they'll be luscious fruit. I'm using this as a metaphor, obviously, but you get the metaphor what I'm talking about here. But it's not trying to just push it out and see if we can't get someone to do business with us today. It's building relationships, and it's also just building relationship with your own personal brand at the same time, and recognize that this is more like a marathon. And so we are very consistent when it comes to like our doors. We've just actually switched up our doors. We're actually we're doing red. We're doing still the red doors, but now we're doing like a Tiffany blue color style door to our houses as well. Okay. So we're getting more consistent with like, okay, if we're using this color, this is the door we're using, this color, we're using this door at this point.
Do you know what the history of a red door means?
I don't.
So back when people would pay off their homes, it's like back in the 20s and 30s, when they finally paid off their homes, they would paint their front door red to indicate that they had their home free and clear.
I like that history. That's good.
Right? I thought it was like, that's why you're doing red, but that's why people had red doors. So I'm like, cool.
Oh.
But I do love me some Tiffany blue. It matches my eyes.
Well, my fiance, JoJo, she's the one that came up with the Tiffany blue. I introduced her to Tiffany, which was a mistake on my part because now I have Tiffany stuff, okay? And,
No. That is what shows your love. Like that is, I know that was a big step for you. We talked about the difference between a coach person or mez before. I remember this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now she likes doing the Tiffany blue and she brags about it, which I'm happy about. But that I introduced her to the Tiffany company, and for better or worse, we're now stuck with the colors now too.
I'm really proud of you. Hey, anytime you want to go shopping at Tiffany's, you can totally call me. I'll have a great time. Yeah. It's okay. They won't think you're my husband at all. I promise. All right. So how did your experience as being a soldier help you get your business moving?
Okay. Well, it's Marines, and but that's a good question. Okay. Well, soldiers is Army, Marine is Marine. But anyway, that's beside the point. Okay. But anyway, so the one thing that I would say is a lot of people will ask me about this.
We have seamen too.
Yeah, we have seamen and we have airmen as well. Exactly. Thank you, Jessica. Okay. So, I'm taking she was in the Navy. But yeah, exactly. So, okay. I don't even know how to really answer this question. I get this question a lot because a lot of people will ask me like, how did like the military transition you to the business owner that you are today? And like I have a lot of my friends that were like, I would like to say that we were cut from the same cloth, meaning we were basically the same people, raised by kind of the same values and standards and families, and even same regions of like areas of in the nation. And when we got out, we all still made different decisions in like our professions afterwards, some for better and some for worse. But I will say that there was a lot that like the military did instill in me. And one of the things that I always like contributing to the military is like being an entrepreneur, it takes a lot of guts to transition from like, you're going from a job occupation to like, let's say real estate investing, where it's like it's the unknown. It's very scary. It's like, you don't know what's going to happen next. All of a sudden, like you just go into that transition, and then there's a transition of you got to get a contract on a house, and even the contract on the house is the unknown. It's scary. You don't know what's going on. Where I would give like a lot of like credit to the military is at least whenever I joined the Marine Corps, there was that, or any military, there's that signature aspect where you just don't know what you're getting yourself into. Like I joined at the age of, at 17, I was signing the documents. and we're talking 2003, and then I was going to go into boot camp in 2004 at the age of 18. And at 17, I'm signing this document basically saying I'm giving my life away, and I have no clue what I'm really about to face. I don't know what I'm about to be. I don't know if I'm going to go to war. I don't know if I'm going to Iraq. I don't know if I'm going to Afghanistan. I don't know if I'm staying stateside. I joined the infantry. I didn't know what the infantry was. And then there's that unknown, but you still do it. You still go through it. You go through that emotion, and then you accomplish that. And then there's other things that the military does for us as well that people just don't know subconsciously. Even as small as like a gas chamber, like a lot of us, in the military world, like kind of joke about the gas chamber. But like whenever you're about to walk in the gas chamber, you're watching people walk out, and they're crying, they got snot coming out of their noses and everything else. And you're about to walk in this thing, and you're like, I don't know what I'm about to expect, but it sounds miserable, and you still do it. And then you're constantly doing that in the military, where there's that unknown factor, but you still like make that leap forward. And being an entrepreneur or getting into business in general, there's that detachment of feeling of like going in, well, some people enjoy the gas chamber. I liked it once I got in, but like when you first go in, you don't really know what's going on. But whenever you're going through, like as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and you're transitioning, some people have never felt that before, like that unknown factor of like trying to go and do something that they have no clue what the results are going to be. Whereas a lot of the military, the highest population of entrepreneurs are military. And one of those things that I would like to, probably say as a contribution to that is probably that subconscious value that's placed into them ahead of time. And I would probably give myself or the military a lot of credit for those type of things. Whereas everybody really wants to talk about like, it instills professionalism and being on time and so forth and so forth. And I don't disagree with that. I think there's a lot of leadership traits when it comes to that. But there's something that's kind of like the canned statement that's always said, but that's what I'm talking about right now is something I just wish that other people just recognize that no one really even talks about. So there's my answer to that. I hope that helps a little bit.
That was interesting.
I don't want to caveat on that, but being military, I totally agree with Brandon. Like it's in general, like you do things in the military that you never thought you would ever possibly be able to do. Throwing a 80-pound pack on your back and going for a 12-mile walk with your closest friends, in the middle of the night after jumping out of an airplane, like that's just not something that normal people do. And so and you do these things like all the time, and going to Afghanistan and going to Iraq and doing all these things. And so you're like, well, I mean, I can do all this other stuff. So like, like I can do this, like, yes, it's a little bit scary, but hell, it can't be any more scary than, some of the other things that we had to do.
The emotional attachment is that you've already connected with that feeling multiple times, so it's not really that far. It's not far that as a distance to you as far as like wanting to like do it. You're like, I've done a lot of stuff that I didn't think that I could do, and I did it fine. Might as well.
That is interesting. I mean, when you compare getting shot at or having a grenade thrown at you, I guess starting your own business seems kind of tame.
Yeah, exactly.
All things considered, yeah. So have you been able? Okay, so I wanted to have you guys hear a story that Brandon talked about. It's one of my favorite stories that he's actually shared from the stage. And he had come across a property, I believe it was through probate. It was a probate property, I believe. And it was a tricky situation. For those of you who don't know what probate is, let's talk about that for a second. Probate is what happens after you pass away if you do not have your estate properly set up. Contrary to popular belief, if you have a will that is not enough to keep your house out of probate. For example, my grandparents thought that just having an agreement between the kids meant that the government wasn't going to interfere with their house. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. There's legal title involved. So we've been working on getting all that set up. But this property, the owner had passed away, and now there was a problem for the heirs trying to sell the property. So now we've got that covered. Brandon, would you mind sharing this story?
Yeah. So this was I dealt with a lot of properties that had title issues to them. And what had happened was there was a wholesaler that wanted to wholesale a property in a suburb neighborhood. Houses sell very quick, they sell fast, but the problem was the house was placed into a trust at previous back in the day, back in the 60s, and there was a husband and wife. What ended up happening was they had children and they passed away. Well, the problem is that the trust owned the property. The husband and wife, while they were alive, did not spell out the children. There was 4 children, could like basically take over that trust when they had passed away. They had failed to do that while they were alive. So what had happened was that there was a break in the chain of the title. The 4 children, the 4 heirs wanted to sell the property, but no one wanted to purchase it because technically they don't own the property. So what I had to do was I had to go through a legal process. So a wholesaler brought it to me, and he ended up assigning it to me. And what I ended up doing was purchasing the property, and I sued the validity of that trust. Okay, there's more to it, but there's a simple structure to it at the same time. Is what I did was I basically sued the validity of that trust and said, this is not a valid trust. If anybody believes that this is a valid trust, please come in front of a judge and please describe why you believe that you have ownership to this property. And if you don't, then what will end up happening is I'm going to get this property and convey clean title at that point. And what ended up happening was it only took about 6 months worth of work and 6 months of a legal basically process. And it was about $3,500 and a $3,500 legal fee. And I ended up getting clean title. And then I ended up selling it for $140,000 where I only picked it up for like 35,000 bucks. Okay. Like the profit margin was so huge. And previous to that, I had lost a ton of deals based upon like having title issues of some sort. And this was my first one. And it was a very interesting one because what I was doing was basically suing a trust, which I didn't know anybody that was basically like doing something like this. And then I started realizing like I'm dealing with so many properties as a wholesaler that there's title issues too. And I just don't understand the title issues. And let me also add this here, Jacob, when I was doing that transaction, I was terrified. Like I didn't know that I was going to be able to convey clean title on this thing. Like it'd been the first time and I didn't really have anybody to talk to or communicate with. But after I ended up doing that transaction, my confidence level just went boom. It went, I mean, skyrocketed at that point. So then what ended up happening is anytime that I would like, before I would go and even purchase the property, I actually look at the title just real quickly. Okay. I just look at the title and I check on the, like on our software. Okay. If you guys aren't familiar, it's more of like the RESS prop stream style software. You can see who purchased to who. And what I'll do is I now know just off a quick like reference, I can see if there's an issue with the title ahead of time and just get myself mentally prepared. If I see something's wrong, if I'll see something like in the transaction previous, then what'll end up happening is then I'll try to discover with the title company how to get clean title. And we have done some very clever and creative things in order to like clean up the titles of these properties, which would have been neglected for years upon years upon years, to the point that some of these houses would probably just get demolished because of just blight and having problems so much that they're not even worth rehabbing on that side. Okay. One that I just previously fixed. So what that process is called, so just to kind of clarify what I just talked about, the actual name is called a suit to quiet title, which means lawsuit to clean title. There are attorneys out in every single city that you could just have a conversation with and ask them what it's going to cost to do a suit to quiet title. Some of them are simpler and some of them more complicated. Typically what it'll cost for like a suit to quiet title is roughly what I see is around that $2,500, $3,500. Moderate will probably be about $5,000 depending on the situation. And if it's really complicated, it could cost up to $10,000. And it just depends on how many people are involved. It depends on if there's a bank involved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because there's so many issues you could be dealing with on titles. But some of them are so simple that you could probably solve them yourself. And people just like, I noticed that a lot of times that people have title issues and they'll throw their hands up, or they don't even purchase it themselves. And they're smoking deals. We've picked up some smoking deals because of title issues, and then we'll solve the title issues, and then we're getting properties at pennies on the dollar. And whereas I'll try to wholesale the house to another investor, and the other investors won't even hear me have a conversation with them about it. They won't even let me like try to describe them the process to clean up the title. They're just an automatic no. They just, no, it doesn't have clean title. Check it off. It's not going to be a deal. And then they don't realize, like, if they listened, if they opened up their ears, they'd probably figure out a way to solve the problem and then get massive discounts on the property at the same time, and everybody can win. And then you don't have this blight issue that's going on. So I really like talking about this because this is it's almost forced us to buy some of these houses because I almost have no chance of wholesaling them. And then we'll end up having to fix them. And then I'll tell everybody afterwards, I'm like, well, nobody wants to make any money around here, so I have to make all the money. That's how that process works. Okay. So like a situation that I dealt with where it was basically the grandparents, there was a grandson, and the grandson's like, he's already in his 60s. The grandparents had bought this property in the 20s when it first got built. So it's an old neighborhood. The entire neighborhood is owned by, it's an older demographic. When he went to go sell it, the problem is that the grandparents never transferred the property properly through the probate process. So you had not just the grandparents that had passed away, but you also had the parents that had passed away. They weren't around. So what I had to do to convey clean title was I had to actually go to the people's graveyards, go to their actual tombstones and look at the dates because they had passed away so long ago that they didn't have death certificates. So we had to get death certificates on the people. Well, the only way you're going to get death certificates if you go to the health department, but the health department wants you to find the date that they died. So you have to have a date that they died. Well, no one even knew what the date they died. They didn't have death certificates. So I had to go to their actual graves, look up the day that they passed away, went to the health department, actually got the actual documents, and then gave that to the title company. And then we were able to convey clean title at that moment in time. So sometimes it means going out of the way. And that house, by the way, was worth $160,000 and I picked it up for 30 grand. Let me add that in there. Okay. So I had to go out of my way to go and get this property done. Whereas another investor that I talked to, like, nah, I'm not going to deal with it whatsoever. Wait, you don't want to deal with $130,000 of profit availability on this property? And also, you also have blight. The house was needing repairs. So you have the ability of picking up a property at pennies on the dollar, fixing up this thing to full standards. By fixing this property up, we're going to be into it for like $90,000 all in. And we got a brand new renovated house with brand new electricity. It's a 1920s built, so it has the beautiful character, 10-foot ceilings. It's preserving the neighborhood of having, opposed to having blight in the neighborhood. And now we have a property that's worth $160,000. So immediately, we've got a brand new house with massive equity on the property, whereas nobody else wants the property. It's something that we'll actually spend the time to fix. And that's something that I wish a lot of other investors at least considered whenever they got title issues on a property. Just at least ask the questions with the title company. What can we do here? And then see if there's something you can do, and just go out of your way just a little bit, and you can solve some of these problems and get massive equity on the property.
That was very interesting. I like how you said, I guess I'm the only one here that wants to make money. That's great. So you're going to have to make it all. Great idea.
Apparently, I'm the only one when it comes to some of these things. So then I'll just go ahead and take it on.
So you knew where they were buried because you asked the grandson.
Yeah, absolutely. So the grandson and I, we built a relationship. It started off a little rough because we were negotiating price. He wanted like his family for a long period of time, but I ended up negotiating the price down to 30 grand. And then after that, like, I actually, when I actually went to visit the grandparents and the parents, I actually brought flowers, sending them pictures, just saying, hey man, I'm respecting you. I just want to say I'm because he had told me the entire story from his father to his mother. So I'm building a friendship with the seller at the same time. And he wants to genuinely solve this problem. He wants the money, and he's got a house in the middle of the way, and he wants me to be able to fix up the property. And he's just very kind and very considerate and just trying to help me figure out some of the answers so we can get the title claim.
So you just hit on something that we've been working on a lot here. I'm trying to get everybody to understand that deals are people. That's one of your things. Yep, always deals are people. People are always deals. What we are looking for here is we're creating relationships, right? Because we've been doing it with Quarantine Survivor. We've been having them cold call in different markets. And they're learning a lot about the value of building relationships, because they'll call these numbers and sometimes they get some surprises where they don't have the property for sale, but they'll get a title agent or a mortgage broker out of the deal, or the person on their end is actually someone who is looking for properties or any sort of thing. So the deals always kind of become people and building those relationships. Can you talk to us about some of your ninja tricks that you use to build relationships and rapport best?
So I'm a big advocator on, like, I just picked up a deal in a historical neighborhood. Okay. And this was 2 weeks ago. I'm waiting for an email to say, yes, we got clean title. And I got Saturday, they kind of gave me preliminary that we got clean title. So I'm waiting for the official word today. But 2 weeks ago, I ended up getting a contract in a historical neighborhood where the historical neighborhood is only two streets long. It's actually only a street and a half. And so it's a really small historical neighborhood. Originally, the seller had contacted me, and he was asking $25,000 for this property. It's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath. It was built in 1926. And he contacted me. He just basically briefly mentioned, this is a new neighborhood for me, by the way, okay? So he briefly mentioned to me that it was historical. Didn't really say anything, like he didn't give me any information. He just uttered the words historic. So what I did was I did all my research just like I would in any single neighborhood. And then I hyper focus on that neighborhood, just like, so now I'm like, I heard the word historic. So now I need to know everything there is to know about that neighborhood. Why is it historic? What happened back in the day? What are the sales going for? Actives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then what ended up happening when I met the seller, I told him, I said, do you know why this area is historic? And he goes, no, not really. He's like, I know bits and pieces. So I gave him the whole story of what had happened with the developer that built that area. He was a famous architect. And I said he was big into the doors. And he was big into floors, like having hardwood floors and having these doors. So then I said, let me check out the door. And I was looking at the door, and it's a beautiful, beautiful door. And then I was explaining to him about his property. And what I was really merely doing was just educating him. I'm there to build a relationship and help the person out, but I'm also there to do business. But my main focus is just building a relationship. And what I was doing was letting him know, like, hey, I've taken this serious. I've already taken this property serious. I've done the research. I've already done hours and hours of research. I was explaining to him, I'm like, I'm having a little trouble finding the value of these houses. He was asking $25,000 for the property. Looked at the property. He ended up having multiple people trying to look at the house as well. So I was having competing people. I offered him $15,000 originally for the house. I said, I don't feel comfortable offering more than $15,000. I've ran my numbers. I'm at 15 grand. He tells me that someone else has offered him more money. He said, I really want to sell it to you. Like, I could even read the text messages. He's like, I really want to sell it to you. You impress me with your knowledge in the neighborhood. I can tell that you're going to fix up the neighborhood to the way my family would want. It's been in the family since the origination of it being built in 1926. So it's about to get changed hands for the first time to another family member outside of their own family member. It's about to be the first time that this has happened. And he was like, I'm really impressed with your knowledge in the neighborhood. You told me things that I didn't know before. I really want to do business with you. Can you go to 19,000? And I said, I can't go that high. I can't go up to 19,000. He goes, I've got somebody that's offering me more than 15,000. And I ran my numbers and I said, I'll go 16 and a half, but that's literally the most that I'm willing to do. And he said, well, I'm going to have to just go ahead and take this other offer then. And I said, before you do, make sure they're not a wholesaler. So all of a sudden I'm educating him a little bit more. So this is a ninja trick that I'm doing right now, a little black belt trick. Okay. And I'm just playing it to my advantage. I'm also a wholesaler as well. So then I said, make sure that they're not just going to get it under contract. Make sure they show you proof of funds. I want to make sure that you have a successful transaction in this deal. We built our relationship up, so I want this to be a smooth transaction. I am an actual cash buyer, so make sure they can show you proof of funds. Make sure they're just not somebody that's going to get it under contract, so forth and so forth, okay? And then he goes, you know what? I don't even want to have to deal with them. If you're willing to take $17,000, you got to deal with me. Just take the $17,000. I'll do it for $17,000. I was at 16 and a half. He's at 17. I said, I'll go up the extra $500. Ended up getting this property for $17,000. It's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath. It's an historical neighborhood. It's got 10-foot ceilings, beautiful hardwood floors. It's got a beautiful door. And now I've got an enriching story that I've got at that point. But I was building the relationship with him first, and then I was educating him. And even though I was competing with other people, he had the ability at free choice to pick up another offer. But then he just noticed, like, hey, this guy's really, truly serious. He's done the research in the neighborhood. I want to make sure that I'm selling it to him. So even though that I was probably a lower offer than what he was probably already receiving, he chose to do the deal with me because I built a relationship first, and he recognized that it wasn't just going to go to somebody that wasn't going to have like just ill care to the house, but someone that was going to have care to it and preserve it to its historic nature because it's been in the families. It's sentimental to them. So I'm showing that I share that sentimental value, but I'm at my number, and that's the furthest I'm willing to go. And that right there got me the deal before anybody else.
So, guys, for those of you who are watching who have been a part of Real Estate Survivor, they're making calls right now. They're learning to make deals right now, Brandon. What did you guys what just hit home for you? What are you guys hearing? What are you hearing Brandon say? You can unmute yourselves, guys.
Building the relationship, education, rapport, being upfront, being nice, kind, all of the above.
Mm-hmm. Now notice that he's not once talked only about the house. He always talks about it in a way to complement the transaction. And he's made the transaction about the relationships and the problems he solved. Are you guys noticing that? Now, does that take education? Absolutely. Does it take education above and beyond what you just learned in theory and textbook? Right? He got this education because he was in the field doing it. He had help. He had his mentor with the Super Quiet title. We mentioned her briefly. She helped him say, okay, do this, do this, do this, and he did. But he's also done things on his own. He had to get in the field and do it. He had to go to the grave site and get the death certificate and say the title agent, everything goes with it. He had to actually do it. So that's how he's learned to solve so many problems. He doesn't sit on his assets. Now, that being said, you learn more by doing it that conquers your fear. You make sense? By doing it, you start to realize, oh, that fear is very insignificant compared to what the opportunities are here for. So the fear that every other investor has had with the deals that Brandon shared with us was they were small problems. They just had a lot of steps to fix. But the lot of steps to fix made them feel like big problems to all the other investors that wasn't worth their time. And therefore, he gets large equity in projects for pennies on the dollar. That in turn has raised his net worth. That in turn has raised his credibility. That in turn built a brand and a business for him. That now has made him a name, not only in his local neighborhood, but around the country as he goes around teaching and speaking. Do you see how the little things have a big impact when they're done over and over and over again? Do you guys see that? Yeah? It's a little different than what people think about because everybody just thinks about the houses. I want to get a house. I'm going to get a house. Who cares about the house? Doesn't matter how much the house is. Doesn't matter where it's located. It's what's the problem and how can I solve it? If it happens to be in the neighborhood you like, you can go ahead and do what Brandon does, where he flips them or he holds them or he wholesales. But you can still solve a problem. Brandon, can you tell us a basic condensed version of what does a marketing campaign look like for you?
Okay, so typically what I'm initially doing is general marketing, guerrilla marketing, just throwing out marketing anywhere that I possibly can, all the way from like Facebook groups to just like advertising to throwing out like little like business cards, just chatting with people, wholesalers, just any general marketing I could do, any general marketing I could do. And then what I'm trying to do is just pick up a lead. And when I pick up that lead, I'll know that that lead is in a neighborhood. That neighborhood justifies me doing research enough to feel comfortable like taking on the transaction itself as far as the numbers are concerned based on where my business is at. When I do that and I feel comfortable, so initially when I get in, in a neighborhood, I may come in there very conservative. Like looking at the ARV very conservative, looking at my repair costs a little conservative because I'm tippy-toeing in that neighborhood. But once I take on a transaction or find a neighborhood, even if I don't take on the transaction, but I find something about the neighborhood that I didn't know before, and then all of a sudden I go, wait a minute, I want to start farming this area. Then what I'll do is I'll find out where the boundaries of that neighborhood are, and that's typically because of like highway systems or roads and all that, okay? And I'll look at that neighborhood, and then that's where we're going to concentrate all of our marketing dollars to pick up more properties. So I'll bandit sign. A lot of people may be against this, okay? But we'll bandit sign the neighborhood. So any houses that's leaving that neighborhood sees that there's a we buy houses sign, okay? So then we basically are targeting that neighborhood with bandit signs. We also put flyers out in the neighborhoods. We also drive and we look for driving for dollars, so vacant properties. I'll back research those houses, and then what we'll do is we'll send direct mail to those to the owners of those houses. So then we're targeting them in that direction, And then from there, what I'll also do is I'll put parameters on Zillow and on Redfin. Any house that goes active, I want to know about that house. I want to know what goes for sale, for rent, what's sold. I want to know. And then I'll get an email. And every single day I'm getting a checked email of what's happening in that market, so I can get an idea of what the market is doing at that moment in time. If something goes up for sale that was a bank-owned property or something like that, I can now snatch that up. And then what we'll also do is I'll take the driving for dollars list, and then we'll back search phone numbers, and then we'll do we'll phone call them. I'm drawing a blank right now, but we'll end up phone calling them directly at that moment in time. So we're hyper focused on trying to contact people in that neighborhood. And then from there, if I've taken on a transaction in that neighborhood, I'm studying also my rehab cost. I'm studying what I purchased the property for, what the sales are going for in that neighborhood. All of a sudden, I'll be subscribed to many wholesalers lists as well. All of a sudden, I'll see a wholesale deal pop up, and I'll immediately know, no deal. Or sometimes I'll see it, and I'll be like, deal. And then I'm striking up the deal before anybody else. I just picked up a deal from a wholesaler. We should be closing in July. It's a forever close away, okay? But it's in July. But I got a wholesale deal that's in a neighborhood. I've already bought 4 houses in this neighborhood, okay? Like, I know this neighborhood very, very well. So as soon as the wholesale deal came in, I saw that the subject property just said street name, and I just knew from street name that that was in the neighborhood that I'm in. I opened it up, and I could even picture the house because I've seen the house multiple times. And then he's selling it, and the house is worth like $65,000. It's a 950 square foot house, and he's willing to sell it for $20,000. So I looked at it, and I looked at the pictures, and I could just immediately tell, just off of pictures, just off the price tag, we're probably looking at about $18,000 in renovations on this property, maybe $20,000 in renovations. So I'm going to be into it for $40,000, and it's worth $65,000, and I know it'll sell quickly at $65,000. So then I called up the wholesaler, didn't go look at the property, didn't need to go and see it, didn't need to see the videos, just off of looking at the pictures, knowing the neighborhood. I said, I'm ready to go ahead and move forward with the deal. He ended up picking up the contract for $12,900. So he's making something like $7,000 off of me, okay, to offer the assignment fee. So he's going to win. I'm going to win. It's a 2-week like rehab deal. It's simple, easy, concrete slab, brick. I know everything about the neighborhood. I know about the houses. That's the whole point. So it allows me to react quicker when I'm doing that. And then no one's able to compete with me, because the moment that one of those houses going on for sale, I'm the person that knows about it first. It's my goal when somebody talks to me about a house in those neighborhoods, I tell them about the house, not them tell me about the house, okay? Like, I'm telling them, I've already talked to the owner of that property. Yeah, it's owned by the daughter. She's trying to sell it for her grandmother or something like that, okay? I already know about the land. I've already seen this house. If someone is telling me about a house in that neighborhood that I'm not aware of, then I'm not doing my job properly. And I'm doing that across I'm doing that in segment portions all across the city. And then what I'm doing is I'm creating the ability to grow into my city and learn the entire city over time. But I still got a lot of territory to go, and we've got a lot of work to get there.
But you're doing it. It took time to get to that point. I was processing some of the stuff you say. You still speak so quickly. I love it. I wish my grandmother talked that quickly. But with what you're doing with those houses, those properties, you don't have a problem with a wholesaler making $7,000 off of you.
Not at all. Not at all.
A lot of people feel like it's, you see, you want to have teams like that. Have you done deals with this wholesaler before, Brandon?
This is actually my first one doing it with this guy. But what it did was it allowed me to start looking at more of his deals that weren't in neighborhoods that I was focusing on. And because I bought that one, I started looking at other deals that he's had. And I'm looking at those, and I'm like, and I'm doing research in those neighborhoods, and I'm like, this is a wholesaler that I really feel like we're going to be buying quite a bit of properties from. So now I'm building trust. I feel more confident in that wholesaler as well, because I know that they're shooting me deals that are making sense. And when somebody's throwing me a deal that doesn't make sense, then I start going the opposite direction, where I don't have confidence in that wholesaler. And if I'm getting a deal in that neighborhood that's a wholesaler that's priced too high in that neighborhood, I'll tell them, you're priced too high on it, okay? I know this neighborhood. I got 4 houses on this street. I know what these houses are going for. I know what they rent for. I know what the rehab cost is. There's no money to be made on this house. And then if they're not willing to come down, then they're not willing to come down. And then all they're doing is branding themselves as somebody that I don't really have confidence in. That may change in the future. It may not. But understanding the neighborhood gives you the ability to have wholesalers that you can give them. You should be happy if you're paying them a $5,000 or a $10,000 wholesale deal. If you're getting the numbers that you want and you're able to grow and expand your business. I have a full crew, something that people got to understand. I've got a full crew of 7 people that we have to have employed that cost me $4,800 a week to keep them employed. $4,800, and that's just the labor itself. I need properties and I need to have consistent deals going on. And I can't have this, oh, I'm got to step over $5,000 and not do the deal because somebody else is making $7,000, $5,000, or $10,000. I've got to worry about my employees over and before anything else actually it matters when it comes to this, okay? And as long as we can be a profitable business and then that wholesaler can be profitable, that's what's important to me. It's about the bigger picture of recognizing that there's other people besides myself that I need to keep employed during this whole entire process. So a little bit more context with that.
So you said JoJo, your fiance, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So she works with you in your business. What's that like, having a romantic and professional dynamic with the same individual?
I love it. I mean, we do have our ups and downs. I mean, just like any kind of business or relationship / business involvement. But I will say that it's the greatest. Her and I get to spend as much time as possible with each other. She does a lot of more of the marketing and advertising. So she's really creative when it comes to doing the direct mail, following through with that. She likes doing the driving for dollars. I'm more of a pound the ground street type guy. I like doing the bandit signs and all that. The tedious office stuff, I hate being in the office. It's just not fun for me. I really enjoy being on the streets, talking with people. I really like doing marketing when it comes to bandit signs, communication on that direction. Joanna really likes the artistic aspect of it, and that's her strong suit. And she really likes to have family involvement at the same time. So she'll have her niece over helping with direct mail. So she'll draw the letters out, sending the direct mail, doing the research on that direction. She's big into Amy Winehouse right now. She's on this Amy Winehouse binge right now. And she'll just sit in her office and she just listens to Amy Winehouse, does her work. She does a lot of the accounting aspect. So then we match ourselves really well as far as a friendship and relationship, and just say, you know what, that's your strong suit. That's something you enjoy doing. This is something I enjoy doing. You don't really enjoy doing this aspect of it, but I really do. So then we come together and we find our strong suits. Where at the beginning, it was trying to figure out and discover what are those strong suits? What are our weak points? What don't we like doing? What do we like doing? And then through trial and error, we figured it out. And now we have a beautiful relationship with our business where we're just constantly growing and we don't step on each other's toes. We help each other out. We're there to promote each other. And it really is, it's working really well with each other. And I really wish that a lot of relationships build with that, because having a partner that's really supportive to you can absolutely skyrocket you as well. If you have somebody that's there to support you and help you grow. And luckily I do have somebody that's doing that with me as well.
What would you tell somebody who has a spouse that's fearful or scared to get on the bandwagon to support you?
I don't know. I mean, I've got a couple of friends. I mean, you're kind of trapping me in a corner with this one, Jacob. I don't know. I've got a couple of friends that I just wish that the spouses were a lot more supportive. And I in my head, I just processed the thought you have no idea how far you guys could skyrocket if you were just more of a supportive person. I just wish there was more perspectives or understanding. And I would really just, I would go down to I would say more of read your Bible, go to counseling, seek help and communicate and, be a part of each other's goals and each other's aspirations, and realize it's cool to be bigger, to have something that's bigger than you that you're constantly achieving and going for. So I think there needs to just be a lot more context with the relationship. Not to say that Joanna and I have the perfect relationship. We have our battles and everything else. So being very candid in that direction. But honestly, I wouldn't want it any other way. I love having the battles because we're battling with each other on a positive measurement. We're arguing about figuring out who has the better idea. And then ultimately the overall picture is that we're trying to figure out what is the better idea so that we improve each other beneficially together. So it's not we're trying to hurt each other. Whereas I see a lot of the other spousal relationships, the problem is it seems like one of them is actually trying to hold one of them down. And I'm not an expert I'm a real estate investor. I'm a military guy, but I'm not an expert in relationships. So I don't really know how to answer that really well. So I apologize, Jacob.
There's no reason to apologize. You were answering honestly. And that's the part. People and I find this is to be very, very true when people start to when they have change in general. You see, when I started, I did have a significant other that I enrolled with, and we thought we were building this business together. It turned out it wasn't going to be that way. And we eventually outgrew each other. But this is the thing. If your relationship is the same as it was when you got into it today, and you've been with that person for 5, 10, 15, 20 years or longer, and it's the same relationship, you've done something wrong. Because that means you haven't grown and neither have they. So if you've grown together, it's a different story. So putting yourselves in a position where you can support each other, build each other's strengths, build each other's confidence, that's the real key here. So like what Brandon was saying, he knows that JoJo's strength is in the artistic side. He knows that's not his strength. So he lets her be her and lets her stay in her lane. And he stays in his lane. And that's how they get the deals that they do. That's how they do the volume that they do. And that's how they expand the way that they do. It's nothing wrong with that. And we all have those times. So I found that this is all, we're saying this for a reason. The reason why I find a lot of spouses are nervous is it comes down to fear. It comes to fear of losing what they have worked for. It comes from fear of losing control of their marriage, of their relationship, of their future. It's that uncertainty that is already present in the relationship. So you have to make sure you know your significant other appropriately, and you have to reassure them that you're making a decision that's best for all of you. Now, there's a couple of people I know, we've actually had them on the show before, who moved forward and got into real estate because they were trying to get out of that relationship that was holding them back. And every one of them that has done that, they haven't regretted it either, because they already knew. They already knew. I kind of already knew. But we were hopeful and we were trying to make things work. What I will tell you guys is that the minute you start putting yourselves in the right situation with the right people to support you, like the right community that you're all part of right now, each and every one of you that's here, you're part of a community, it makes it easier to make the changes you're going to have to make. Some of them are going to be romantic, some are going to be business, but every relationship has a value. And if you've done something positive that value, it's something that you have to weigh. Whether it's romantic, whether it's professional, whatever it's got to be, they will adjust because you are always changing. And that's good. That's the only thing that's constant in the universe is change. So I'll let that sink in for a little bit. Okay, so Brandon, when you are calculating things for your deals that you're planning to assign, what are the first numbers that you try to calculate?
Okay, so I reverse engineer the transaction is what I'll do as far as a numerical aspect of things. Okay, so I'll have originally an ARV of a high and a low, but that high and low needs to be like a high and low of a difference of what I call less than 5%. In rare occasions, I'll have like something that may be 7 to 10%, like an ARV, like you have a high and a low, because you're trying to pinpoint ahead of time. You're kind of, real estate can be very like, you have data, history, and all that, but there's still a splash of speculation that'll occur there, okay? So then you'll have like highs and lows of basically like a difference of like 5% or so. What I'll personally do is I'll go off of that low number, and then I'm backtracking my ARV at that point in time as far as like, I'll go, in my neighborhoods that I'm in, I need to be into it all in with all my hard costs. This is not soft cost, but hard costs. I need to be into it at 70% of that ARV, okay? So the hard costs are going to be closing cost initially, purchase price, and rehabilitation cost. The soft costs are not going to be included in this, but I would be looking at like soft cost is going to be interest payments. That's going to include insurance, taxes, and utility cost, okay? So I'm not including that in that 70%, but my all-in budget on the hard cost needs to be 70% of that ARV. And then from there, I'm minusing the repairs onto the property, and that gives me my max allowable offer, which I'm sure everybody's been taught in here at some point in time. And then from there, that's what I need to be purchasing that property for, and then I'm trying to get it for less than that. If I get it for less than that, then that number right there is what I'm going to assign the contract for. So if I can get it for minus $5,000 less than my max allowable offer, then I'm going to expect to make $5,000 on the assignment fee, or $10,000 or $2,500. I mean, we assign things for $1,500, $2,500. Depends on what I negotiated, because we're not there to try to charge the most to our investors if we're wholesaling. We want repeated customers buying properties from us. If they're successful in a transaction and they're profitable, guess what they're going to do? They're going to buy more from me, okay? So I want them to be profitable. I need to be profitable in my assignment fee if that's going to be the case. And then we just work with each other. And then my goal is to understand that neighborhood and educate the investor that's going to be purchasing it so that way they feel comfortable and give them a game plan of how that transaction is going to aspire and what kind of budget costs they need to go at, okay? So I constantly have phone calls with people. Well, they'll ask me questions and they're like, I got the rehab cost at $26,000. And I go, nah, you're a little high. You're more like $20,000. You should be more like $20,000 in the rehab of this. Okay, let's talk that through. Okay, well, I didn't know what to put for this, the pillars on this thing. What did you put for the pillars? $1,500. The pillars are going to cost you like $250, okay? You're just going to take out the 4x4s. You're going to put new 4x4s. You're going to wrap it. They're not going to be that fancy, okay? Like you don't have to go $1,500 in pillars, all right? Like things like that. And then we'll have like a friend. Again, it's people. Deals are people. So it's educating them and saying how much time it should take to repair the pillars or fix this or fix that. And then who do I contact for this? Who's my electrician? Who's going to be my plumber? And then guiding them through that so that way they have a successful transaction. So we look at ourselves as wholesalers more of like a service provider, less of a like, we're here to show how much we made on an assignment fee, which is a lot of the mistakes that I see with wholesalers. It's all about, I made $10,000 on the assignment fee, okay? I'm not impressed by that. If the investor didn't make any money, then why are you impressed by bragging about your $10,000? I'd be much more impressed with you saying that I made $2,500 and then I've got this investor, he made $25,000 on it. And guess what he's going to do? He's going to buy more from me at that point in time. So I didn't make just $2,500. I'm about to make $50,000 over a long period of time. Whereas one people are just come and go. They get $10,000 and that's it. And then they look for the next person. They look for the next person. We look at ourselves as a service provider, as a wholesaler, not just some assignment fee show off like number. There's a big difference there.
That was very well said. I love how you looked at it as a way of stepping into relationships with people, not trying to gouge people, showing what great deals you can find, and then gouge other people on what they're willing to pay. That's actually has a lot of integrity to it. It really is.
Thank you.
Do you guys have any questions you'd like to ask Brandon?
Brandon, this is Leanne. I have a question. I was tossing about this idea. Yesterday, I spoke to someone that actually rehabbed, 9 property in a year, and she did it in Indiana. So I was thinking to myself, because I'm a beginner, so I do have some savings and stuff like that, but I didn't plunge into doing rehab. But the way that she acquired property seems to be pretty fast because she actually buy it from a wholesaler and then rehab and rent it out, or maybe she rehab and sell it. But right now I'm pursuing the path of finding motivated seller and wholesaling, which is a little bit time consuming because I'm still on the beginner side. So I was tossing, should I move to the buying side to actually buy property, or should I be still continue looking for motivated seller? What is your take on that?
Let me ask you some more questions. What do you enjoy looking for the deal? Do you enjoy the hunt of looking for the deal at all? Is it something that you don't enjoy, or is it something that just the pursuit of trying to find the deal, is that enjoyable too, or is it just miserable and you just don't like doing it at all?
I'm not sure about that because right now I'm only focusing on one path, which is finding motivated seller.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's time value of money of like, is it better to go this direction or go another direction? And my ultimate answer when it comes down to being in this business is about pursuit of happiness more than anything else. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's about enjoying the process. If you're not enjoying searching for deals, then go with the wholesaler and build relationship with wholesalers. Teach them what you're looking for in a deal, but be genuine to those wholesalers and trying to make them actually successfully wholesale a deal to you. Explain to them what you're looking for, and what the challenges that you're facing, what you have that you bring to the table, and then show, like a lot of times we're actually educating wholesalers. I want there to be wholesalers that are successful in my neighborhood, and I want them to know what we're buying. So that way it's just a handoff. They pick up a deal for me and then I'll just go on from there. But I also do very much enjoy actually like the hunt for the deal, the search for the deal, the finding the neighborhoods, the research aspect of it, the talking with the people. I really, really like that. So we do both. I need to find deals, so I don't need to neglect the idea of like, I'm only going to look at it from my aspect, only my aspect. I need to also think about my employees, which I also enjoy. So I look at it in that direction. So my answer to you is more about the happiness of what you're trying to pursue. If you really, 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 if you enjoy like going out there and trying to find a deal, don't get away from that. Even if you're not as successful, if you're buying from the wholesaler, eventually you will be more successful in that aspect. Okay. But I would say at the beginning, until you know, don't get rid of it. Stick with it. Stick with trying to continuously try to find deals, continue doing that process, but also go to the process of trying to talk with some of these wholesalers and build relationships with them and explaining what your business is looking for. And then if they get a deal and they submit it to you, talk to them about it. Why do they think it's a deal? Why don't you think it's a deal? Why do you think it's a deal? And then chat it through so that way they at least have like feedback. That feedback, some of these wholesalers do want feedback. Some of them don't, but some of them do. And if you're giving them good, honest feedback, then whenever they come to you again, they're like, hey, based on what we talked about last time, I think that you'll think this is a deal. And then maybe you'll do a deal from there. So I don't have any direction to tell you at this point in time until you figure out, do you really like doing, you know, pursuit of deal or wholesale deal? And it may be both, and it may be just one or the other. Okay. Does that help out, Leanne?
Yeah. I already know that I like to talk to people, but you know, which way it goes, I do not know yet. Yeah. Okay. But I'm not ready for rehab. I'm not ready for rehab. So I was wondering, is it because mentally I'm not ready for rehab, or is it, you know, I'm feeling that it's a distance away from my place? I'm doing out of state wholesaling. So I'm not sure whether that could be a barrier also. Yeah. So that's why I asked you all those questions.
The biggest battle that we face is the 6 inches between our ears. What do we tell ourselves every single day? All right. You can be where there's plenty of things that I never thought that I was good at until I actually gave myself the opportunity of trying to be good at it. Okay. You know, rehabbing real estate can be very scary at the very beginning anyway. Okay. Even if you're doing a wholesale transaction, just getting the contract itself and feeling like, am I going to have a successful transaction is also very scary. All right. So even rehabbing a house, it's very scary because then you go, am I actually going to renovate it for the price that I need to renovate it for? Am I going to have a successful sale? Is there going to be a buyer within X amount of time? All of that exists in your head. Okay. And that's more of a self-development aspect. But I do think I've got many friends, including myself. I'm a hard worker, but I'm not very like craftsman. Like my measurements suck. I can't measure things properly. I cut them wrong. I can't paint very well. Like the only thing I'm really good at on like a project is like heavy lifting type stuff. If they need me to like move trash, or if they want me to sweep something, or if they want me to grab them tools, or if they need like a support, like I'm like, to my crew, I've got 7 people. We've got 3 of them that we call pros that are just, one of them we actually nicknamed Superman because he's incredible. He can do everything. He's amazing. We love him. And we love all of our pros. And we got 3 assistants that go along with him. And then we just have another, he's a high school kid that basically sweeps and everything else. But I'm not ashamed to come out there and help my guys out and like sweep some stuff, pick up some trash or anything like that. But all I'm really doing there is really just being an assistant to them. That's all I really am. Okay. Just an assistant helping them. And it makes me feel like I'm accomplishing something and helping them out, and not just being somebody that's just buying houses and getting them to do all the work. It makes me feel that, you know, it makes me feel, I don't know if it shows any significance to them. Okay. But all I'm basically saying is that at one point in time, I used to not be good at anything at all. And now I realize that I'm not really good at any of that, but I can do some of these things. And I don't do any of it. There's nothing that I'm really doing other than just supporting my people to get it done. And it's taking me time to gain the confidence that I have about like the sell, the renovations, the numbers and everything else. But ultimately you got to take a leap for yourself. Okay. You got to you got to make that happen. And that's really just for your self-development here, just to say, okay, I need to start developing and not be afraid of this. And I'll start small. There's nothing wrong with starting small. Okay. If you're talking Indianapolis, you can still buy houses, fix them up where they're selling probably within like that $60,000 to $80,000 range. So You know, what's the risk on a $40,000 to $50,000 house? Even if you sold it for $60,000, you may not make any profit off of it, but at least you built a little bit of confidence on it. Now, I'm not condoning that you not be a profitable business, but it's better than being scared and better than not giving yourself the opportunity at all. You get what I'm saying?
Mhm. Yes.
Okay.
Got it.
Thank you, Leanne. Thank you, Leanne.
That was a very good question, a very, very well thought response.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Brandon?
James, you got anything, bud?
How to get more deals? No. Yeah, I think like right where I'm at, you know, just for those of you who don't know, I show up to a 3-day seminar last June, about a year ago, and Brandon taught that, and then I jumped in, and yeah, I got my first deal done back in February. I actually called him a few weeks beforehand and said, dude, I can't afford rent at the end of the month. I'm broke. I'm at the end of the ropes. I can't get anything done. I just had a baby, and I got scammed $1,200 off a fake seller, and I was pretty much at the bottom. And he's like, hey, it can turn around pretty quickly. And I think it was 2 days later, I got a call on a bandit sign. That afternoon, got a signed contract. And so Leon, kind of to your point, it's like, you know, I don't have any background in rehab. You know, one of my big pet peeves is like, you know, you go to rehab meetings, everyone says, oh, I'm brand new. Or they're like, hey, I never had any kind of background in real estate. And then you find out they're a contractor for 5 years. Or you find out, hey, I was a mortgage broker for like 3 years. It's like, all right, you had experience then. So like, I didn't have anything. I called Brandon up while I'm walking through and like, dude, I have no idea what I'm looking at. I don't know what the repair costs are. I can't even figure out the ARV. I was totally blind. And so, I mean, like, you don't have to be an expert on it. Like, Brandon literally held my hand like through that deal. And so, I mean, I got $2,000 off that deal. So it wasn't huge, but I mean, I was able to pay rent. I had that peace of mind that gave that confidence right there. But yeah, now it's just kind of as more deals are coming along, I end up partnering with 2 other guys too, because, you know, they have more time, they have more expertise on that side of things. And we found a good little partnership that way. But, you know, now we're finding, all right, every single deal is different. There's all these unique scenarios. We have some title issues on one of them. One of them we just had to back out on, but, you know, every single one, like you said, you're jumping into the unknown. It's like, all right, I've never crossed that bridge before. But as you go through more and more, you get more and more confidence. And like, even though like I have a ton to learn, I'm still definitely a rookie. I feel like I have the confidence to actually go forward and say, all right, I don't know it yet, but I will learn it when I go through it. And I have people around me who can walk me through it. So that's kind of what I'd say to.
How much did you make on your last wholesale deal that you text me about?
$18,850.
Yeah, cool.
So that was pretty insane. And so, I mean,
yeah. Is that your first time making that much money that soon? That quickly?
Absolutely.
And how did it feel?
It felt different.
Surreal.
Like, holy crap. Like, I can actually put stuff toward my credit cards and like pay stuff off.
Oh my God.
And, you know, it gave just like such a breathing room. And so, you know, the first deal I got $2,000, second I got 5, and then this one got 18. We're closing on another one. That's kind of a weird double close, but then we have another one that's closing in a few weeks here. So, I mean, it's like momentum's picking up. We got more coming through the pipes, but you know, the $18,000 one, that was split with 2 other guys too. So, I mean,
who cares?
We made a
seriously. That's like what, $6,000 each?
No. $18,000 each.
Wait, whoa. Oh. So
yeah,
18. That was your percentage of the profits.
Yeah, and so
Damn,
good for you. They ended up actually buying it. So I think technically wholesale to my partners, and they're flipping it, and they're going to make a killing on the back end too. So yeah, that was an awesome looking deal.
But the thing is, the reason why you found that deal is because you're doing it.
Yeah,
you did something, and you started off with 2,000, wasn't a lot, and then it grew to 5, and it quit. Like Brandon was right. Brandon's often right. When it can change very quickly, but you have to do something. You can't stop thinking about it. You've got to put out the signs, get on the calls, talk to people, put yourself out there and be vulnerable, because guess what? That's what gets people to notice you.
Yeah. I put out 1,500 bandit signs at this point.
So where do you get your bandit signs
1,500 bandit signs?
Yeah.
That's aggressive. Where at? What's your market, James?
Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Oh, do you know Felix?
Absolutely.
He was on there last
helped
week.
walk through the first deal as well.
Oh, he's fantastic. I'm so glad that you know him. He's a great guy. Brendan, we both love him. Well, Brandon, do you have any final thoughts you want to share off with everybody?
Well, I just kind of want to piggyback off of James' story. I remember he called me 2 days before he got that lead, and he basically was telling about his whole like situation. And like in a situation that I'm in, I'm rooting for everybody to be successful in the business, and I want them making money. And he's down in the dumps, and I'm like, dude, just don't give up. Just it can change very quickly. It changes from one day to the next very quickly, very, very quickly. Whereas like one day you feel like there's even times in my business. Like I just calculated the deals that we've got. We've got 7 rehab deals, and I'm waiting for these others to close. And I only got a month and a half worth of work. And I'm like, I don't have anything after a month and a half. So sometimes even where I'm at, I don't feel like I've got enough deals. And then some people just like, oh, that just sounds absolutely crazy. That can't be the case. You're always doing deals. Okay. No, again, I have employees that I got to make sure that I'm keeping like employed all the time. I can't have a week with them not having work. They need to be working every single week. It's more about them at this point. So there's even that time for me. And then all of a sudden one day changes, and then I'll get a deal, and then I'll get another deal and another deal. And then all of a sudden I'm like, stop. We don't need to be picking up any more deals anymore because we're like packed up on deals at this point. And then all of a sudden we're all constantly going through this like this emotional, mental like roller coaster up and down all the time. Even if you've never done a deal and you're barely paying your rent and everything else, it could change from one day to the next. And then all of a sudden, James, 2 days later, how long it took you like a day to sign that contract for $2,000 after that, right? Like it was like immediately, right?
She called me that morning. I went there that afternoon. We had to sign contract. Well, then we found out that her brother needed to sign as well because we got a counter offer.
I remember that.
So we ended up having to meet like the next morning to get both their signatures. But then I didn't even have a chance to market it. I was able to sign the buyer pretty much right away.
Right away, and then it was done deal. So then you're talking less than a week from the time that you had that conversation with me. You already had the ability to sell it and make $2,000. And a week prior, and then you said you got started in June, and then you're talking February. So there was months and months of nothing, no traction whatsoever. So then the future of the unknown at this point in time when you had contacted me was very, very dim. It was very bleak and all that. And then all of a sudden it changed, and it changed from one day to the next. And now you realize that it keeps changing one day to the next, and you're getting better and better and better and better and better. And then guess what? In 2 years from now, you're going to be better than you are now. And you're going to look back at the time that you got started. And you're like, I didn't know anything back then. And then 5 years after that, you're going to look back and like, you're going to look at the time that you said that to yourself, and you go, I didn't know anything back then either. So like I'm 10 years in, and then I look back and all the deals that I've done, hundreds and hundreds of transactions, I look back and I always constantly say, man, I didn't know jack 6 months ago. I didn't know jack. And 6 months from now, I'm going to look at the conversation that we're having today, and I go, I didn't know what I was talking about back then either. And you got to constantly do that for yourself. And you got to just entrust in yourself and go for it and just realize that it'll work out if you give yourself the opportunity and just go for it in life.
That was very well said. Like we've had this statement several times that I did not come up with, but I use all the time. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because you're always growing, right? You're always growing, you're always learning something new, and you only learn something. Learning is uncomfortable. It pushes you out of your comfort zone of what you know to be true. But that's why it works. Notice when Brandon said the reason why he's trying to find deals is now because of something bigger than him, his employees. That's bigger than him. It started off for a different reason, and it's grown to something even more. So you guys have to let yourself go through this process. Be patient, honor the struggle, but you also have to realize you have to take action. James, may I ask you a personal question?
Absolutely.
When you started taking your education in July, is that what you said?
Essentially, yeah.
Okay.
July.
And how long did it take you to actually start doing your marketing? How many months did you wait?
I probably started in late August, but as far as like what I consider like real marketing, probably not till actually October. And actually, like I started out trying to do sandwich lease options, and what was recommended to me is start marketing to tenant buyers first. And so I did a lot of that, but I found that there was a crazy demand for that. And I was like, all right, well, there's no problem trying to find tenant buyers. And like then I needed to switch to start marketing to sellers. So I didn't really start marketing to sellers until I think late October, early November, hitting it hard.
Have you done any deals with those lease option buyers?
Not yet, no. I still,
Okay.
yeah, I found that there's a really high demand in Chattanooga for that, but a really low supply, and I haven't really found much that's really made sense for a lease option yet, but they've all kind of been wholesale, so I'm like, well, I'm just gonna focus on that then, and if a lease option comes up, then I'll attack it. But I have that database of tenant buyers ready to go, though.
That's very good. Just make sure you keep them active, keep them warm, let them know you're still here for them, and you can still serve them. And they actually can turn out for you. And other things that are interesting, guys, is that when you have people who want to partner with you, and you've got people who, like for example, Leanne, she's got capital. Say she wanted to get into a deal of some sort, and she has capital, but she needs to grow it right now. Well, if you know of other opportunities that are going to make capital for you, you need a money partner. Why not join them? It may not be a long-term deal, but it could be something else. For example, I have a money partner that just got some money from his PPP, and he is trying to grow it because he's got to do certain things with it, XYZ, and even though he's one of my real estate partners, he's actually helping me invest into my nonprofit, helping us get some inventory and making a quick buck. We're going to be in a deal that's going to last a month together. He's doing that. Even though it's not real estate, it's still capital. So you can still use your training that you've gotten in real estate to see what else is out there. The flipping game is real. If you're nervous about flipping a house, then start by doing what I'm teaching my kids. Flip books, flip cars, flip dining room sets. Do something that gets you used to the concept of buying at the correct price, doing something to increase value, marketing to sell the property, recognizing your profits. If it's a mind game for you, if it's something you've got to wrap your mind around, do what you already are familiar with, and then transfer those skills right back to real estate, because that's where you're learning them from. Hopefully that would be a little bit of advice. Now, we were going to say goodbye, but we just had someone very special join the call. Hello, Miss Anita Winkles. I know why you came in. You want to say hi to Brandon, didn't you?
I did. So can you hear me okay? Because I'm in the car.
Yes,
We can
ma'am.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so I could not resist trying to at least jump on the tail end of this. Sam and I have been running around like chickens with our heads cut off this morning. We just actually got possession of a property we closed on about just over a week ago. That is going to be another rehab project. So I'm leaving that house now, headed back to the RV.
Brandon, did you know that Anita and Sam sold their home and now they're living in a camper?
I know Anita very, very well, and yes, and I'm very proud of her, and I know she's having a time of her life right now. I know it's a little struggle, but it's still very fun for them.
Well, I'm glad you popped on,
Yeah.
Anita.
Yeah, Brandon and I, we keep in pretty close contact, and he's a rock star. I know I sent a message out to my tribe saying, if you can be on this one, be on this one, because Brandon is the bomb.
Mm-hmm. He's pretty smart for being cute. That's okay. You don't have to blush, Brandon. We all know. Anyway, it's on brand for me. Why not? If I don't hit on somebody at least one phone call, I haven't done my job. So, guys, thank you so much for being here today. If you've enjoyed something from Brandon, please feel free to tell him. Brandon, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how can they find you?
Multiple ways, okay? Now, I always say this. If you're going to find me on, like, my Facebook or anything like that, and you're going to friend request me, you better like my stuff. That is my like criteria of who's staying on my friends list and who's not. If you don't like my stuff or comment or anything like that, you're not allowed to be on my friends list. Okay. So I don't want friend requests and nobody like says hello or likes my junk and stuff like that. Right. Okay. So, my Facebook,
I'll leave that joke alone. Too easy. Keep going.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay. So Facebook, if you go Brandon Diaz, Memphis, Tennessee, you should be able to see just send me a friend request. That's one way. You can also probably go into Facebook and go Deals with Diaz as far as a search hashtag type thing. May be able to see me on that direction. On Instagram, I go through highs and lows on my social media. Right now I'm the lows on the social media, but every once in a while I'll get really picked up on like Instagram. And that's going to be Brandon Diaz 101. So Brandon Diaz 101. That's another way on my Instagram channel. And then on my YouTube channel, the YouTube account is Deals with Diaz. and just subscribe to Deals with Diaz. And I've got some videos on there. We need to put a little bit more out there on the YouTube side, but so I've got YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. These are my main platforms to get in touch with me and message me or whatever the case is.
Well, we'll make sure we will put those links in the video comment section when we are done with this today. And as always, guys, thank you so much for being here. Wednesday, we are going to have another fantastic investor party that you don't want to miss. We're going to be learning about how to invest in real estate using yours or someone else's IRA. So be here for that so you can actually find more value with this. If you're liking what we're doing, please go ahead, subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and we will be here to join your party when you get going. Thank you for being part of our community. I'm Jacob Jennings, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.